Welcome to Not What I Thought. I'm Erika.
I'm Yolanda.
And I'm Becca. We're therapists, entrepreneurs, and perfectly imperfect humans.
We first met during a business owner retreat where we became fast friends because we're not afraid to be real and ask the hard questions about life. What we thought it would be like, how messy it actually is, and the courage it takes to create the life we want.
We continue to build our friendship and personal growth through our own retreats. We find the deepest connection in sharing our struggles and finding what we have in common rather than what divides us.
We're breaking down hard topics on our podcast and together have conversations about what it takes to find real talk, real support, and real rest for professional women. We're glad you're here. Join us on your favorite podcast platform. Okay. My not what I thought moment is, I want to just start that over. I don't know where I'm going. Pull that back. We're gonna. Okay, I'm ready now. So my not what I thought moment for today has to do with career choices and schooling. So I definitely had this idea, and maybe it's because, my mom was a teacher. So there was this very clear line of like, you go to school to be a teacher and then you get a job in an elementary school. And like, that is a, clear path one-to-one. And I had been in actually a teaching program. And then I decided the semester before graduation that I was going to change my major. I didn't actually want to be a public school teacher. I had switched to deciding I was going to be a therapist. So I dropped a couple of the teaching class. I didn't do student teaching. Basically, I did all the other course requirements, popped in a couple psychology classes, and then graduated with an English degree instead of an English teaching degree. And I had some gap time before I needed to go, or before I could apply to grad school and get that started. And then I'm looking at, I have to have a job and I have no clue. What do I do? What am I qualified for? There is not a direct line. You graduate with a bachelor's in English and now what? What are you qualified to do, right? And the idea for this topic came from another woman I was talking to this weekend who had the same experience. It was like, wow, I went to school and got this degree. I honestly can't remember what she said her degree was even in, but that her internship program, the 3 months that she spent working at a company, better prepared her for career than the actual degree program that we kind of finished. And it's a really confusing place to be then to go, well, what the heck do I do now? Right?
Oh,
yeah.
I'm picturing younger Becca with her resume and it's like English degree and you just go to the different places and you're like, what do I do?
What do I do? Yeah, I had no idea.
what did you end up doing?
That's a good question. I ended up through a friend of a friend getting a job as an office manager for a software company.
Yeah.
Which they wanted someone who had a college degree, but there was nothing at all in my degree program that I ordered the supplies and I answered the phones and I filed the papers and they had me do a few things here. Oh, the owner asked me to draft up a white paper. I had no clue what a white paper even was. I'm like, and he's like, well, start with the history of whatever the thing is. And I'm like, I don't know how, what does that even mean? How far back? I was so completely lost and confused and unprepared.
What is a white paper? I feel like I need to know. I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's
it's a thing that they made you
do.
Like
a draft, a before a presentation so it's not exactly a presentation, but it's like, here is outlining this idea, the scope of a project,
It's
whatever.
The research behind the presentation.
Yes. The research behind this is why we're doing, this project this way. I was like, I'm Googling, I don't know.
Oh boy.
And I think that I had a kind of similar experience uh, seeing my first therapy clients as well.
Yeah.
I mean, not exactly the same because you
Yeah.
do get some more specific preparation in graduate school for being a therapist, but also like sitting in front of those first couple of clients and realizing, oh, the things that I learned in my textbooks, I don't actually maybe know how to translate that
For
here, or I
real.
haven't learned about this thing yet, or,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. The difference between the academia and the real life application. I A couple of things are coming to mind. One, I was well into like middle and high school before I realized that not everybody actually goes to college. Like I remember having a friend that I met in middle school, and I remember sitting with that friend and saying, "Did you know that not everybody goes to college?" Because that was just kind of like in my household. I don't even know that it was explicitly said. It was just what was assumed was going to happen.
Mhm.
And becoming a therapist was like a later in life um, going back to school. And my first go round to school was a bachelor's degree in international relations and French with a minor in German that I never actually completed because I really have no idea what I would have done. Like I thought, I'll be an international lawyer, I'll work for the United Nations. I don't know, but who knows in practicality, like what that would have actually looked like.
So I wonder, like carrying this conversation forward, maybe for other people, like, what do we do when you get to a place where you like maybe know something isn't working? So for, my experience was maybe a little bit different because I knew with that office manager job that like this was going to be a temporary thing because I was preparing to go to graduate school. Um, but I've been there in my life or in my, career as a therapist too, like getting to a point where you're in a job um, or in a particular phase of life and go, I don't think I want to do this anymore. or or this workplace isn't quite what I thought that it was going to be. Or maybe I graduated with something that's kind of broad,
Mhm.
um, you know, and it's, well, which which direction do I go with this marketing degree or with this engineering degree or computer? Like there's so many,
Mhm.
even with the degree in a particular field, like it can be so broad what you end up doing with it. And I wonder if we could talk a little bit about like how we make those decisions for what what we think is going to be best for us.
Well, what made you shift from the teaching degree, Becca?
There were a couple, that's a good question. There's a couple different things. One of those was uh, talking to other people I knew who were teachers.
Mhm.
One of my good friends is a couple of years older than me, and she was already teaching middle school. And I had
Mhm.
this realization of like, oh, we really kind of only see her in the summer. Like she's
Mm.
so busy and works so hard that she
Mhm.
doesn't really have a life during the school year. And
Mm.
then as part of the degree program, we did a few things where we like went into classrooms. And so I hadn't done student teaching, but I had like been in classrooms and done some, like mentorship things with other teachers. And they kind of had this real kind of gallows humor almost about how rough it is to be a teacher. And I thought, like, maybe that's not actually a lifestyle that I want to sign up for
Mm.
with, low pay and being underappreciated. And then it's like, kind of, you can't do anything right. The students don't like you, the teachers don't like you, the administrators like, oh, maybe that's not really what I want to
Parents.
do.
Mhm.
And at that time, as a part-time job, I was actually working as a Spanish teacher
Oh,
in
okay.
a language training school. And I found even there, I enjoyed the one-on-one interactions more than I enjoyed the whole classroom thing.
Mhm.
And I also was working again part-time in the summer at a residential school for teen girls. And I
Mhm.
was just the after school staff. So I would like pick them up from school and then be the adult supervision while we did gym time and, whatever. And um, that really was a transformative thing that brought me towards therapy, seeing
Mhm.
these girls that would like come to the center. Some of them honestly were just there, but there were some who really made some progress. And it was just heartbreaking to think about that we were sending them back into the same environments that they came from, right? Back to the parents who were their drug dealers or back to the parents who were pimping them out. And like, what hope do these kiddos have for any real change in their life when their environment at home isn't changing? And so those things kind of coalesce together to think, okay, maybe if I want to make a difference, there's other ways that I could do it. And that's what shifted me towards therapy.
Mm.
You said your mom was a teacher, so is that why you wanted to go into teaching to begin with?
I think so. I think it was a known,
Mm-hmm.
like this is something that I've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
I also was in a very religious environment that was kind of heavy on traditional gender roles. And that was touted a lot as like, well, this is a great career for a mom. Or you kind of do this until you get married and have kids. And then you know, and to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't receive any adequate like career or educational counseling. Like there was nobody who sat down with me and looked at my aptitude for things or looked at my grades or suggested, hey, you should really, have you considered this? That just wasn't really a thing. So, yeah.
Because I love your data point about thinking, what do I want my life to be like? What do I want my life to look like? And do I want to work extra hours and not get paid for it? Do I want parents calling me and upset about this quiz? And, what do I want that to be? And I don't think enough people, me included, right, ask those questions early on before we even start thinking about a career or what we want to do next. Like, okay, how do I actually want to manage my own time and my own life? What are my values and how can my career fit into that instead of like the other way around?
Yeah.
Well, I also am thinking of like the developmental phase of like when these decisions are traditionally made, right? I mean, traditionally, early adulthood is when people are making decisions about going into college or what to do after high school, whether that be college or whatever the path is. And just developmentally, how challenging it is to think all of those steps ahead, especially if you don't have any support from a mentor, someone older, or a coach, or a counselor, or something.
Yeah, that actually kind of blows my mind when I think about it too much. Like we're making decisions at 18 years old for like what you think is going to be the rest of your life.
Right. But for how many of us, I mean, like Becca said that she started one degree in college. I started one and shifted out of that. And even post college, to your question, Becca, like the decision to go into private practice was working in other environments that I started to realize very similar to what you were describing. Is this how I want to do this work? It seems like there are different ways that this can be done.
Yeah. I had this book recommended to me about designing your life.
Mm.
I loved the premise of it. It's like taking design and innovation principles and applying them to our lives and careers and really looking at like iterating, figuring out what's working with this one little part of our life and what's not working. And can we make, small changes or sometimes big changes that are going to take some of what's working and really moving us towards not just like a career or lifestyle that is what other people think that we should have or that has the right title or it is prestigious in this particular way, but really looking at like you, the individual person, what lights you up, when and how do you do your best work, so that you can really design a life that works great for you and doesn't have to be part of like a blueprint, right? So maybe if we're not 18 anymore and figuring out these choices,
Mhm.
or like, whatever. Now we're mid 20s, mid 30s, mid 40s,
Mhm.
or older, and going, this isn't working for me anymore. I want to do something different. We don't have to go all the way back to the beginning and like go back to school and get another career, because it's not always that linear, like
Right.
degree to job. Like we could
Mhm.
take where we are now and all of the skills that we already have in life experience and start shifting towards something that's going to work really well for us, but doesn't have to be a complete starting over. Because I think that's where a lot of us get stuck, when we feel like this life isn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm not
Mhm.
happy, but I can't go all the way back and start over. It's like, well, what if that isn't the only option? And you really could like create, there's not a blueprint for it, but what if you just created it?
And I think it starts, as I'm thinking like for myself, it starts with breaking the mold of like this is what we're told is the linear progression, right?
Mhm.
You make the good grades in high school so that you get into a good college, and get the degree in college so that you can get the dream job and like carry forward in the dream job until you retire. I mean, how many of us, again, implicitly or explicitly, were given that blueprint, that timeline that we just stepped into hook, line, and sinker, not knowing that there are different ways of doing it. And like you said, Becca, you don't have to go back to square one to reinvent things for yourself. Like throw away the blueprint.
Yeah, when I was graduating college, I knew I wanted to be a therapist, but I was just assumed I would do the PhD program because that's the highest thing that one can do. I didn't even look at anything else. And then I was in that program, definitely did not work for me. And
Mm,
so, yeah, but it was to what you're saying. We don't have to throw it all away, burn it to the ground, start completely over, just what parts are working and not working. And I'm thinking too, to several of my clients over the years who either wanted to go to med school or wanted to go to, some other type of higher education. And when you sit there and look at it, I'll use med school as an example because I think that's the easiest one. It's like,
mm,
well, what is going to med school and how much does that cost and how many years of your life and all the stress and everything versus, being a PA, which is like 1 year and significantly less expensive. And
mhm,
why are you so attached to this one way? And it almost always comes back to family of origin bullshit stuff.
mhm, mhm.
This is what I'm supposed to do, but that's a MD is better than a PA. Well, for what reason? Let's like really
Right.
actually dive into it and figure it out.
Well, I think even in the mental health profession, there's so many of us who do get a psychology degree in undergrad, which is fine. But thankfully, at least in the time that I went back to school to become a therapist, because I had a personal experience that I had this epiphany, oh my God, this is what I am supposed to do with the rest of my life. And so thankfully, I did have someone at that time to say, do you want to be a psychologist? Like, because that is this many years of additional education. And if you haven't finished your bachelor's degree, if you go back and finish a social work degree, then you can get your master's degree in a year. Okay, that sounds like a lot less time and money and energy to do the therapy that I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's people who are passionate about doing the other thing, right? Becoming the MD for some other like totally cool reason.
Sure, and that's totally fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
but for me, it was like at the time I had small kids and like the whole thing, and so it was like logistically, what's going to get me from this point to sitting in a therapist chair, and doing therapy with people.
And I remember after being in the private practice for a while, um, having this just kind of amazing realization of seeing how my thinking had changed,
Mm,
because so much of what I'm doing here is like, well, I can see as many clients as I want to, or I can
mm,
see as many clients as I can handle.
mm,
And I don't have to work at times that don't work for me. Or for my practice, we do 80-minute sessions instead of 50-minute sessions because that's what I found works really well for my clients.
mm,
And there being just this freedom of like, I can really design it and create it the way that I want to.
mhm,
I can't recall now what exactly the situation was, but it was like I remember having this epiphany of like, oh, I am in charge of my own life.
Yeah.
Like, if this doesn't work anymore, I can change it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like incredibly empowering.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it's interesting too that now I do some business coaching, and a lot of what I help people with is writing copy for their websites and getting their marketing message right on. And like, whose English degree is coming in handy now every week? Right? It's like,
Woohoo!
oh, let me
Full
help you with the
circle
grammar.
moment.
Love it. The marriage between the English degree and
And the
the mental
therapy
health
degree.
degree. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. I do. One of the things that I've learned about myself and I have really pulled into my clinical practice is a reminder to myself on a regular basis. I am not a victim of my life. I am not some small force who's being moved about the world by larger forces than myself. I always have some level of agency, no matter how minuscule it might be, whether it's like sleeping in an extra 5 minutes or like whatever it is, I have agency in the way that I'm living my life. And if something truly isn't working, not that it's a waving of the magic wand or anything like that, but um, like that internal locus of control is I've found to be really important to me. What is one small thing that I can take a look at and do for myself to move me in the smallest way in a different direction?
I just really like that idea of we have agency over our own life, even in the smallest ways. And I actually like the example you were giving. If we sleep in an extra 5 minutes, but we chose to do that, right? Because then we can take accountability later for other things. Well, I wasn't late out of happenstance. I was late here because I took an extra 5 minutes to myself because I really needed to rest or, whatever that might look like. And I think that can reduce the shame that sometimes we feel when we're making these major life transitions. I know when I left a PhD program, ooh, fancy, to go to a master's level program, like that was a big deal in my family. It did not go well. And I've had
Mm,
a lot of shame about it for a lot of years.
mm,
And I think I knew it was the right move for me, but maybe if I had more confidence or more empowerment in like, oh, I'm making this decision for me and for nobody else and for my family and what things I want for my family, um, then perhaps it wouldn't feel so like this was a mistake or I made this choice because I couldn't do my other choice,
mhm,
which is not true, but it started to
mhm,
feel true as I let those other voices come in.
mm.
So, I mean, so many reasons, but I've already been in college for 3 years and now I'm going to change at the last minute. I'm going to have to stay longer and cost more money and
Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
other people's expectations.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the shame that comes when we don't abide by other people's expectations, but they're not the ones paying our bills.
Even an extra 5 minutes if I want to.
That's right. I can have ice cream for dinner if I want. Yeah, I think that there is so much just implicit messaging in our society around, this is quote unquote the way, the right way to do it. And it does take a lot of courage to shake free from that. So yay for each one of us in our own ways.
And yay to your friend you were talking to who inspired this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also want to like point out that in all of our stories, the thing that, well, one of the things that helped is talking to other people, not just following like, well, this is how it's supposed to be, but really like seeking out mentorship, asking, um, talking to people who are in the career, asking for advice, whatever that thing is, like it happens through community and conversation,
Mhm.
both like the information that's going to help us make the decision and then the support to actually do it when we figure out either we're in over our heads, we don't know what we're doing, this thing I chose isn't working for me anymore, whatever that thing is, like we don't have to do it alone.
That is such a really beautiful point. Yeah. The shame dies with a me too. And also, yay to future versions of ourselves when and if we find ourselves stuck in a place that we don't want to be. So, Becca, what does your heart know to be true?
My heart knows that it's okay for me to design a life that works for me, and that I don't have to just do what other people expect of me, but I can create something that actually works really well for me.
Mm. Erika, what does your heart know?
My heart finally knows after multiple years of business coaching and being told every single meeting that it's okay to change your mind, that it's okay to change your mind.
Mm.
What about you, Yolanda?
Oh, my heart knows that following some falsely fabricated timeline that is created by someone else doesn't guarantee success and definitely doesn't guarantee what I deem to be success. So I can operate by my own definition of success and on my own timeline with community. Love you guys.
I love you too. We are so excited to announce our upcoming live event. Join us online on January 19th, 2025, where we'll guide you through the sometimes shame and guilt-ridden experience of setting goals for the year. We'll have real talk about how goal setting can lead to burnout and real support for visioning a 2025 that includes real rest, connection, and play. Go to notwhatithought.com to register. We hope to see you there.